You are listening to Scenecraft Nightcap. Welcome to another Nightcap, a series of bonus episodes where we pull back from the scene and into the wider world of film. I'm Cody, here with my fellow loggers,
Mark
and Connor.
We have a very special episode today where we'll be giving our brief impressions of Train Dreams, directed by Clint Bentley, followed by a pro-take discussion with Clint himself to discuss the making of his film in greater detail. The logline for Train Dreams reads, based on Dennis Johnson's beloved novella, Train Dreams is the moving portrait of Robert Grenier, a logger and railroad worker who leads a life of unexpected beauty in the rapidly changing America of the early 20th century. We'll start spoiler-free. Mark, I believe you saw this film first out of all of us at the end of last year. What did you think of Train Dreams?
All right. I was wowed by Train Dreams. I found it to be incredibly moving, but in a non-flashy, understated sort of way. And I think what makes this film unique to me is that it doesn't follow a traditional plot structure. Instead of seeing that traditional kind of plot play out, we're really seeing a life unfold on screen, witnessing a series of pivotal moments in the main character's life, from falling in love and starting a family to enduring the grueling labor required to provide for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think center to this movie and the beating heart of the movie is Joel Edgerton's performance. I think he is perfectly cast as a stoic yet deeply kind man searching for his life's purpose. And his relationship with Felicity Jones just feels authentic and lived in, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But make no mistake, and I need you both to back me up on this, there are some really devastating events in this film that completely broke my heart.
Mm-hmm.
But what I appreciated is how those darker beats exist right alongside moments of real warmth and beauty in a way that feels very true to life. Nothing felt sensationalized, you know? It just feels honest.
Yeah.
And I think that tone carries over into the cinematography of the film as well, which is absolutely gorgeous. Nature has a huge presence in this film, and I love the way this was visually depicted.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you guys noticed, but there are so many shots where the landscape completely engulfs the characters in frame. And to me, it really drives home how small we are, not just in the world, but in the grand scheme of time as well. So I thought that was really well done. Overall, I really loved Train Dreams. I think in a year packed with fast-paced, plot-driven movies, this one feels totally in its own lane, so to speak. It's patient, it takes its time, and somehow because of that, it hits even harder. In my opinion, it's a real emotional gut punch delivered in this poetic, deeply human way. Those are my thoughts. Connor, I'm curious, what did you think of Train Dreams?
I'm right there with you. I really loved Train Dreams too. It was one of those that I actually needed to watch twice, back to back. Once very late at night by myself over the holiday break, just kind of taking it all in.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I think that was the perfect way to experience this movie for the first time.
Yeah.
Then I actually watched it again the next day, this time with my wife, and I was really able to appreciate more of the wonderful details the second time around. This movie is so well crafted, from the beautiful cinematography to the naturalistic performances to the immersive production design and world building that really places you in the early 1900s wilderness, all building this quiet, thoughtful portrait of a man's lifetime. Without giving too much away, it was a perfect way to visualize a life as a collection of memories. Moments come and go. Some moments stay with you and you're happy to relive them. Other moments stay with you even if you wish they wouldn't. People fade in and fade out. Life happens around us even if we wish it would stand still. And all of it together creates this beautiful waking dream that left me incredibly moved. Bentley and the whole team really made magic on a small budget. So cool to see Edgerton and Jones get to flex their acting skills in roles like this. And I was really impressed with William H. Macy's role in this too. He
Mhm.
maximizes his small amount of screen time, and it was super memorable for me.
Mm-hmm.
Cody, what are your thoughts on Train Dreams?
I loved Train Dreams like you guys. It is
Mhm.
in contention for my top film of 2025.
Oh, wow.
It's just wonderful and speaks exactly to what I look for in a film within this genre. It's a certain quiet, melancholic beauty that takes its time.
Mhm.
This is sort of like the taste of things of 2025 for me, kind of
Mhm.
that similar
Hmm.
vibe. And there is kind of a
Mhm.
thematic overlap of the seasons of life in
Mhm.
that film. And as you mentioned, Mark, Train Dreams is not afraid to break your heart with harrowing sequences.
Mhm.
One sequence in particular, without spoiling anything specific, visualizes the events of a natural disaster. And there's a certain moment within that sequence of events that will really just stick with me forever. I was a blubbering mess throughout the runtime. And that is, of course, a major, major indicator of a meaningful piece of art, at least to
Mhm.
me, I think to all of us here.
Mhm.
Clint Bentley, his cinematographer, Adolfo Veloso, and the whole team really breathe life into this movie. You feel like you're walking in the woods with these well drawn characters. And this may be the best performance by Joel Edgerton on record. And for him, I think that's a really high bar to clear. In fact, the whole cast, Felicity Jones, William H. Macy, as you said, Connor, everybody, thoughtful and natural performances.
Mm.
Train Dreams could not have come at a better time for me, both from a familial perspective and as one response to the current focus on a certain computational creativity within the industry that I'm a part of, that we all talk about.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I cannot imagine a story like this being generated via algorithm.
Mhm.
It is just so deeply rooted in humanity, its human touches and emotions. It really gives me faith that stories like this will always have a seat at the table, while also commenting on the uneasy coexistence between nature and technology.
Wow. Well said.
Yeah, it's funny when I was watching this originally, immediately clocked it. I was like, "This is Cody's movie. Cody's gonna love this one."
This is in Cody's Venn diagram. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, as we say in the Venn diagram, catnip, whatever you call it here. It was, yeah. I'm glad we all liked it though.
Oh, I
yeah,
loved
me
it.
too.
Yeah, it was so great.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited to talk to Clint.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's get to it. Those are our general thoughts on Train Dreams. Let's go into spoiler territory and welcome on our guest, director Clint Bentley, for his pro take on the film.
Amateur or professional?
Professional.
Clint, thank you so much for joining us on Scenecraft to talk about your film, Train Dreams, today.
Thank you for having me. It's really fun to be here.
We like to start the pro take with a bit of backstory. Can you tell us about how Train Dreams went on a journey from the Dennis Johnson novella to your film that we see today? And did your early way of life on a ranch inform your approach to adapting this story?
Yes, I had loved Dennis Johnson's writing for a long time, and this was actually the first book of his I'd ever read, just by happenstance when it came out. But I never thought of this book as one that I would have the courage to adapt or anything like that. And some of the producers on the project, they had the rights to the book and were looking for a filmmaker and had been looking for a long time actually to try and find somebody. And lucky for me, it had just kind of like come down the waterfall. And they saw my first film, Jockey, and felt a similar sensibility or something and reached out. And that started the process then of I went back and reread it, thinking about it as a movie, and felt like I could see the shape of it very quickly. And my writing partner, Greg Cuidar, we spent probably a year and a half writing the script and going back and forth with the producers on getting it in shape. And then Joel came on board. And once Joel came on board, it all kind of started to like really take shape. And then Black Bear Pictures financed the film, who had Greg and I had worked with on Sing Sing,
Mhm.
and had a really great experience with them. And
Amazing.
Teddy over there is very smart. And fun fact I haven't talked much about is that like there were no other offers on the table. Like Teddy was the one who believed in the film and put put their financing behind it. So
Cool.
and I grew up in the middle of nowhere. I grew up in the woods, and much to like my disappointment as a kid because I didn't get to like go over to friends' houses and stuff like that. But we had a lot of land I could just like get lost on. And Florida is a really weird, strange place, and you find strange things in the woods. And yeah, there was something about without like making it too much of a therapy session. I think like my family had been in that area for a long time, for many generations, and the land felt like another member of the family, and you're so intertwined on a farm or a ranch with animals that they're members of your family as well in a way. And so yeah, that's a thing I'm like always very interested in trying to work in, like how does the natural world affect our lives and how do we affect the natural world and what does that look like, especially as we're in a really weird place as humans, where
Yeah.
we're disconnecting ourselves farther and farther from the thing that we came from.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear you speak about that relationship between nature and humans, especially because the lush natural locations in this film truly feel like a distinct character. I was wondering, what challenges did shooting in the forests of the Pacific Northwest present for you and your crew versus working on a stage, especially given the constraints of a 29-day shoot?
Yeah. We're shooting in real logging camps for part of it, and logging areas, because we also, in terms of that, like I wanted nature to feel like its own character. I also didn't want us doing, and we were all on the same page about this, me and the crew and the producers. We didn't want to do the same thing we were criticizing we wanted to be very thoughtful about how we were interacting with nature.
Yeah.
And so as one thing we did, we went out into areas. There are a few trees that are cut down in the film, and those were in logging areas where they were already going to cut down these trees, and we were like, hey, can we strap a camera to that tree while you cut it down?
Oh, cool.
And so trying to be thoughtful about that, but it presents a ton of challenges. I think like if you're going to, there's a scene where something, without spoiling it, happens to Bill Macy's character, to Arn Peoples, and we shoot it from the perspective of a tree looking down, and we're doing this gag with a branch falling and all of that. And yeah, it presents a ton of challenges. It really is tough on everybody, because like the actors don't have their creature comforts. It's really hard for them to like go escape to a trailer.
Right.
The crew, we all have to work harder of like we're trudging up this, up the side of this mountain with gear to like get in the snow so that Joel can trudge through snow, versus like putting a bunch of fake snow on with a screen behind us on a stage. Everybody got really energized by it, and it was something that I think like it just adds so much to the film, not only in the quality of the light, but in the things that pop up. We found that little river where, the family's laying by the river early in the film, and then there's a moment where Kate throws a cup in the river later on, and like, so it was just such a magical place that we only had a couple of scenes that were going to be there, and then we ended up just like building so much more in that space because that space was so magical.
Hmm.
And yeah, there's loads of things that just like came out of being there in nature.
Right.
It's just really hard to hide a crew, like to be able to shoot where you can walk around and you've got the majesty of the forest, and you've got more than you could ever build, by just walking out in the woods with Joel Edgerton and Felicity Jones, or sitting Bill Macy on a log amidst this logging camp. Like that's a beautiful set, that better than, anything you could ever build. And yet it is really tough. But it gives you so much,
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe just to dive further into that aesthetic of the film, that beauty, it feels so effortlessly pure and lived in. And we're curious what discussions were like with cinematographer Adolfo Veloso to develop that rich visual language that enables us to feel a man's entire life.
Mm.
And we wanted to say congratulations to you and Adolfo for the Critics' Choice Award win for cinematography. That's so exciting.
So cool.
Thank you. Yeah, we're all very proud of Adolfo over here. It's amazing. I think that there's a couple things. It's like it's Adolfo and I talked a lot about it, of just like letting the world be the world. And there are things that happen sometimes where, whether you've been through it or not, like a natural disaster, whether you, like I grew up going through hurricanes, other people as tornadoes or fires, it's tragic and it's destructive, and yet there's strange beauty to it, you know? And
Mm.
I didn't want the film to have this like neo-romanticism view that like somehow nature mirrors our inner life or anything like that. Like nature's doing its own thing, it's living its own path while we're living within it. You know, letting things be, not trying to make things overly pretty at times. That lake that they lay beside early in the film, that little pond, is just covered in grass, and it's a very kind of like, it's not the most beautiful place in the world, and yet it's made beautiful by what's going on and what's happening there.
Mhm.
And similarly, like that area where after the cabin is gone and the fire has moved through, that area was an area that had been wiped out by a forest fire, you know, like 4 months before we got there.
Wow.
And there's something really like tragic but also starkly beautiful about it. So we didn't we just wanted to like let nature be nature without trying to impose too much of a will on it, you know?
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I'm glad you brought up the wildfire sequence. We were saying before we hopped on that it's definitely one of the most beautiful and striking sequences, following Robert stepping off the train, and it's done in a oneer. How did you design and execute that sequence? And further, how did you decide which moments in the film would unfold in a single shot? Another example being the vigilante shooting at the campsite.
Some of them were we designed in one take, and some of them the film decided that it would be one take, the film gods, whoever. But the fire is a big one that was like designed early on. Of course, you know, we've got a moving locomotive coming in, a steam engine, then Joel is hopping off of the train, and then we're running through this. You know, you can't do that unless you design it that way.
Mhm.
But we just wanted it to feel, we wanted that one in particular to feel like for the audience that we're discovering it as he's discovering it,
Yeah.
you know, and we're feeling that same thing.
Mhm.
And we couldn't have done that without like, it's beautiful work by Adolfo, but also Alex Schaller, our production designer, is brilliant at building these worlds out, especially on limited means, like you guys mentioned earlier that we had.
Mhm.
And then our VFX supervisor Ilya Mokhtarizadeh is incredible as well, and like bringing that fire in the background and painting out elements and things like that. It's just like all of those three elements working together while Joel's inhabiting this space. The cowboy coming into the film is a funny one because like I really wanted to shoot that like a spaghetti western and had storyboarded it out to cover it in like 6 or 8 shots, I can't remember, where it's gonna like, you know, he's gonna step in the frame and then we're gonna see his face and then da da da, and it's gonna be these close-ups. And I wanted to shoot it like a western because I've always wanted to make a western, but I don't know how to make a western. That was the last scene we were gonna shoot that day. And we didn't have any more time to like do reshoots or anything because we were independent film, didn't have much money. And we had gotten behind on our day for a couple of different reasons. And we got to that scene and Adolfo had been really pushing to do it in one. He's like, I just think it would be better in just one shot. It just you compose it, da da da. And I was like, nah. And he, you know, went along with me and was like, all right, we can, you know, do it. We kind of met in the middle on it. But then we got to the end of the day and it was like, okay, we can either do coverage as it's storyboarded and we'll get one take on each shot, or we can just set up a shot, compose it really well, and then run it like 6 or 8 times, just as many times as we can before we lose the light.
Oh, wow.
And opted for that. And it was really amazing just to watch everybody working together in concert on that because like we had staged that scene in such a way where we were going to cover it more traditionally, which means you don't have to be as thoughtful with like how it's staged with the where the wagon's laying and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And in 10 minutes, we not only talk to all the actors and are like, "Hey, we're doing this," and they're like, "Great, let's go," and they're on top of their game to where they can execute it all, and we can kind of get the rhythm of the scene so that it works in one. But then also while we're doing that, and I'm working with them, Adolfo's staging the frame with the crew, and they're completely flipping this thing in a moment's time. It just felt like a band, like, working together in a great way, and you can't pull it off unless you have a bunch of great people working around you, you know?
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's really cool how everything came together in the moment. And it's not a live production per se, but it's almost the equivalent where all of these elements need to align with the movie gods, as you said.
And they were on Adolfo's side that day. They were like, we need and I'm so happy because I've had like heroes that I look up to who have watched the film and they're like,
Oh, wow.
man, tell me about the choice to shoot that in just one take and not cut in. And I was like, well, it wasn't mine, but I'll take it.
Well, it works so well, and it also speaks to the idea of frontier justice and
Yeah.
how someone could just wander in looking for revenge without any real repercussions.
I've worked on construction crews and on farms and stuff like that, and I've had a couple of experiences of like people just stepping onto the crew to get money from Jimmy or whatever.
Oh, funny.
Oh my
It's
God.
not anything that's like changed, I think.
Yeah, it's like a much less dramatic modern version of that.
Yeah.
Well, you referenced it a bit earlier, but we'd love to dig more into your scene work with Joel Edgerton, Felicity Jones, and their on-screen child, whose family scenes felt real. And personally speaking, that made me break down in tears multiple times. It's as if we're observing the most beautiful home movie of all time, which then leads to such tragedy. And we're just curious about the rehearsal process there with the family to create that organic quality and avoid feeling rehearsed.
Yeah, it's a good question. And, with working with kids, I know there's all these rules of like, you don't work with kids and you don't work with animals and you don't shoot out in the nature and da da da. And like, we did all of those things on this film. And working with kids is great, I think, because if you can like follow them. And my first child was about 2 years old around the time of making this film. And so I knew what it was like to try and like make a game with a 2-year-old, and sometimes they want to do it and sometimes they do not give a shit at all about what you're doing. And they just want to do their thing. And so I talked with Joel and Felicity early on. They had their kids are around the same age as well as mine. And we talked early on about just like having this approach where we're not gonna like force these kids down a path that they don't want to be, and we're really gonna like listen to them. And I took the approach of like, I know what I want emotionally from this scene or from this moment, and sometimes I need something very specific as an action, like throwing the cup in the water. But then it was working with Joel and Felicity. Okay, how do we get to a place without like being too prescriptive about it?
Mm-hmm.
It takes me out of a movie when I watch it and a kid like delivers a line that just feels completely false, and I'm just trying to get like very naturalistic performances so the audience can lose themselves in the film. And so there was one moment where like it was written in the script that the little girl would howl like a wolf.
Oh, yeah.
And so we made it a game, and Joel was like trying to get her to howl. And she wouldn't do it. She had done it 10 different times, of course, before we started shooting. And then she just wouldn't do it. But it almost became kind of cuter and sweeter that he's like trying to teach her to howl and she's not really into it.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually she did it for like one take. But yeah, it was just, we did some rehearsals early on, but it was just like, we put Joel and Felicity in a room with the kids and the kid's mom, Crystal, who was incredibly helpful. And they just played, and it was just like about getting the kids comfortable and to where they're forgetting that there's a camera around.
Yeah.
And then kind of direct them put them in a direction that you want them to go.
Cool. So Train Dreams, it's filled with these subtle, thoughtful touches that give its world a genuine sense of life. Everything from the way light falls on a scene to small character gestures. We were wondering if you have any favorite details that might go unnoticed by viewers on a first watch that you are particularly fond of.
Thank you for asking that. That's great. Yeah, I think the dream sequences, there was a lot of thought and care put into each of those, like the shots within those and how the shots connect into each other. And then there's the other thing is like at the end in the biplane sequence, a lot of those shots in that sequence are like different takes from things we've seen earlier,
Oh, wow.
as if his memories have like either changed a bit or in some cases like grown a bit sweeter
Oh, cool.
throughout time. And so there's just a lot of those things that were deliberately like put in for that hopefully reward multiple viewings of a film,
Yeah. Definitely. And I'm just really quickly, I'm curious, amidst that biplane sequence, obviously we get that last bit of really poignant, powerful narration. Was that narration going to exist in the film like from the get-go as part of that kind of like fable approach to the movie?
Yeah, the narration was something that I wanted to bring. I knew from early on and felt like what works so well about the book is partially what works so well is Dennis Johnson's voice. His writing voice is it's so powerful and it's so kind of like
Hmm.
clever and thoughtful. And so that was something from very early on that I wanted wanted to bring that in, but also wanted this narrator kind of like Jules and Jim or Eats
Mm,
Upon Bien or even Days of Heaven, where you have this kind of like strange narrator who can kind of go off on tangents and things like that
love
and
it.
give you more like tell you a story versus just like, narrate events. And what ends up in the movie is probably like 50% from the book and 50% written, but the task was just to like make it all feel of a whole so it doesn't feel like it's, any standing out.
Oh, yeah, that absolutely comes through. And I can't imagine the film any other way.
Hmm.
It's just really beautiful. And finally, lately we've experienced great films like Sentimental Value, Jake Kelly, No Other Choice, all grapple with legacy and purpose to some degree, especially from a familial perspective. Train Dreams seems to invert that commentary on legacy to say that a quiet, obscure life can have great meaning. How do you personally interpret that idea in relation to the way we tend to measure a life today?
I think we think about our lives a lot of times, and it's not our fault. We're like conditioned this way, not only in the West, but in America in particular,
Hmm.
to think about our lives as like singular things. And what is my life going to mean? What am I going to leave behind? What is my legacy going to be?
Yeah.
Rather than thinking about it as like a link in a chain, right? As some other cultures do. And there's also this feeling, especially in like the hustle culture that we live in today, that like your legacy, quote unquote, is about achievements versus something much deeper and richer and more true, which is the love that you share with people and what you build on a deeper level with the people around you. And that idea that your life has and all of our lives have a very deep and rich meaning that exists outside of whatever we do or don't accomplish in the world.
Well, thank you, Clint, so much for joining us today to talk about your film, Train Dreams. We really appreciate all of your insights and for making this incredibly moving film. It is truly one of our favorites of the year, and we are wishing you all the best heading into award season.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for having me.
Thank you, Clint.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here, Clint.
Cheers, fellas.
Thank you again to Clint Bentley for his pro take on Train Dreams, which is streaming on Netflix. And of course, thank you for listening to this special Nightcap episode. We'd love to hear what you thought of Train Dreams. Feel free to email us at contact@scenecraftpodcast.com or follow us on your preferred social media platform @Scenecraft Podcast for any scheduling updates and news. See you all next time.